Welcome. We'll be starting in just a second. Want to let people get on. So, welcome to another edition of ALN Thursday at 3. I'm Mike Bordenaro, Executive Director of the Asset Leadership Network, and David Shelby, who is Asset Manager with the EPA, recommended that Dorina call me, and we had a talk this week, and we hit it off, and the opportunity rose for Dorina and her partners at Tallgrass AI to talk about using AI in IT property management. And we'll get to them shortly. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsors and our patron members, Mantech, Onuma, ABS Quality Evaluations, and all of our organizational members. Without membership, we wouldn't be able to bring you programs like this. And also the presentations that we're going to be doing at the ASHRAE AHR conference in February 1st through 4th in Vegas. And we'll be doing a preview of some of the messages that we'll be sharing there next week. So please join us next week. But let's get into this program really quick with Dorina. Um, Dorina, if you can turn on your camera. We've got other people that you partner with, but welcome to the Asset Leadership Network. And it was so great talking with you, and it's so good that David made the connection to us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, this is really, really great because I appreciate the whole networking aspect of it and how it is. This is how we do business. It's we do well by someone, and their word of mouth helps us build relationships and therefore kind of grow and help others. So we truly appreciate this opportunity, Mike, to have the conversation about what we're bringing into the world of asset management. And really excited about this opportunity where we're hearing a lot about, AI and how are we utilizing it. And we feel like we've kind of landed on a very innovative solution to help organizations solve problems that we're facing, that we're seeing a lot of in the space. And that is we have too much, it's old, it's obsolete, we have extra. And so in having those conversations is what I do. And maybe we talk a little bit about just me in general and Salus Technology Partners, but basically, we are a IT asset lifecycle and consulting firm, right? So what we do is we bring in ITAD best practices, secure data destruction solutions, and now we're adding into the fold this AI-driven lifecycle intelligence where we are helping organizations reduce their risk, improve governance, that's our point, and to recover significantly more value from their technology investments. And so the genesis of where our partnership really came from is on the heels of the conversations that I've been having with government agencies and other entities, again, back to the fact that they're saying we've got a lot of stuff, we don't know what to do with it, we have policies in place, but we have too much, it's old, it's obsolete. Dorina, how can you help us? And so absolutely we can help you with the disposal of it, but it begged the question, why is this continually happening? Why is this a regular thing that we're seeing where it's not uncommon for organizations to say, I just have a lot, and yes, we might have an ITAD provider, fantastic, but at the pace that it's keeping up with, how are we doing the reporting? And we're just seeing some consistency. So it was on the heels of these conversations that I said, you know what, let's pull in the network. Let's talk about this and let's see if there isn't a better way to do that. And that's when I had reached out to the good smart folks at Tallgrass AI, Ralph and Michael, who I believe may be joining our call to discuss what they're doing in the IT space And how can we develop a program that could solve these problems? And that's where the genesis of what we come up with, the asset lifecycle governance system, and what we want to bring into agencies that are falling into some common issues, some common problems.
Okay, before we bring Ralph on and the
Yeah.
and good folks from Tallgrass, AI is getting so much buzz and actually so much funding, but not towards any specific, well, it helps when there is a specific benefit of the AI. There's an application that is useful, and you've identified that application being IT asset management.
Correct. And we did hear this, right? People are saying, Doreen, we have a budget for it, but we don't know how to use it. Or we don't even know how it's going to applicable. Or what's that ROI going to look for? What is this going to help us do? And, first and foremost, we want to help you get to a point where you no longer have excess and obsolescence. And you'll see Michael smile because it's a term that we talk about a lot. If you find yourself having excess and obsolescence, then we need to shift how we're utilizing your assets and find maybe a correction in terms of how long you're using it, what that process is to dispose of it. But most importantly, what we want to do is help them in the very beginning of this process. And what Michael likes to talk about, and I'll send it off to him regarding the best buy scenario, based on what you were using, for how long you're using it in your policy, maybe it might make sense to shift how we are purchasing and acquiring that equipment in the first place, and then using that governance to help get the best value for those assets.
You said the magic word policy.
Policy.
So,
Correct.
how much of the problem down the road can be addressed if the leaders understand the tools that you're offering the market and can better plan for the inevitable changeover of IT personal property?
Yeah. So the question is, and maybe I lean this over to, I'll set this over, but let me make sure that I understand your question. First of all, that, you know, I will say this, when in working, especially within the federal government, right? Some organizations hold really tight to the policy. Some of them have what we'll hear and we'll say, it must be destroyed, assets secure policy, or there's concerns with how the funds can then be appropriated on the back end, right? And so whatever the guidelines are and we're adhering to, we're going to find a way to, first and foremost, adhere to the policy. We're not here to break policy, right?
No, let me rephrase it then.
Let me make
Let me
sure that I'm
rephrase it.
addressing your question, Michael.
The,
Yeah,
the consistent problem is because people are only thinking of the disposal part. And if they think of the entire life cycle and establish a life cycle policy, it puts things in place
correct.
for the ability to use this wonderful new AI tools that's out there.
Yeah.
But currently, the thinking isn't matching what the tools are. But anyway, that's what you guys get to say, and I'll let you continue. So, Dorina, you've
Yes.
been generous and said that you'll kind of facilitate this conversation now. So I'll kind of let things hand over to you and where you want to
I
drop
get
this.
that there. Well, again, I mean, I think, we are here talking about, the IT assets and the problems that we're going to solve. And back to where we got to the fact that, right, we're here to solve some problems and the conversations that led me to Ralph and Michael at Tallgrass AI and what they're currently doing and the experience that they have. So what I would like to do is let them, speak to, um, you know, what it is that this governance process is, what it is, what it's not, and at a high level, how it works. And then most importantly, what kind of results, what we can expect from an engagement and what that could look like from an ROI perspective. So that said, I'm going to then toss it over then to Michael and Ralph to just, first of all, introduce yourselves and then talk about at the high level, what we're trying to do to
Yep.
solve these problems that we're finding, within the federal space or any government agency for that matter.
Perfect. Perfect.
Right.
Well, thank you guys for the platform. I'm Michael Beal. I'm one of the founders of Tallgrass all the way back to 2003. I'm not going to drain too much on who I am, but let me turn it over to Ralph really quick for a quick intro, and then I'll kind of bring it back to Tallgrass, kind of like our journey and how we've kind of partnered with Dorina, and how we found ourselves in kind of like the perfect storm right now. So, life couldn't be better of kind of like where our tech is, where the markets are, and just all the confusion and how to actually really adopt AI. So with that, Ralph, why don't you chime in real quick, and then I'll take the ball.
Absolutely, absolutely. A Tallgrass AI. And I think before I speak a little, what resonated with me, Mike, what you said is, what's the benefit, right? What's the benefit of what we're doing? Are you only looking at the end of life, or are you looking at the life cycle? And I think what we are looking at as Tallgrass, what we're proposing, and when we're working with our Fortune 500 customers, what we're offering them is a holistic framework, right? That transforms how companies buy, monitor, and ultimately optimize their asset value from start to finish. So it's more than just, hey, do we look at the disposition of a product, or do we look at the disposition in solving one-off problems, but do we now also go back, on the left-hand side and start working on solving that problem from the root cause, basically, so that for the future you will no longer, hit that hard issue, that hard problem. We're working with like I said, we're Tallgrass, working with Fortune 500 companies, dealing with a lot of siloed data, dealing with billions of data points. Am I saying that correct, Mike? We're dealing with a lot of data points, and over the past years, we are very fortunate in the position where we are. And I think, like Mike also said, we're in the perfect storm. There's a lot of things that are going on in any space, whether it is in the Fortune 500 world or whether it is in the government world. A lot of things are happening, and I think with AI, we are not replacing individuals per se, but we are augmenting their ability to be more efficient, more effective, and a lot stronger, just as whole individuals. Because what we're seeing is that a lot of companies, they're laying off people. Government has been laying off people. A lot of work is now falling on a lot of the same shoulders. And how can AI help, not just for the sake of helping, but to ultimately deliver benefit, financial benefit, personnel benefit, overall time efficiency benefit? That's my introduction. Longer than normal, Mike. I go back to you.
Awesome. Yeah. So just, I think our journey really started in spend. And I think and as you move into any ecology of supply chain, you're eventually going to be disappointed and frustrated. So all the way back to 2003, my job right out of college was literally to take up to eventually I've probably touched about $1 trillion and commoditized all of it. So once it's in a commodity, again, this is classic spend analytics. It turns over to a commodity manager. That commodity manager typically has that particular commodity pretty much mapped out. They know all the players. They know the commodities that feed the commodity. They know they have SLAs in their back pocket. So I would serve over these little microeconomies, and they would then, of course, we'd claw back 25% of savings. And then we talked about policy here. Policy would then equal managed spend. Okay, so I've done over 250 spend engagements with every spend house on the planet. I've touched every kind of commodity and every kind of industry multiple times, once over. So I get the game, but where my frustration came in, where I saw absolute failure, is we would put something under management, and again, these guys would make their big chunk of money. It was all gain share back then. So I made a lot of people a lot of money. And then I would then watch the managed spend deteriorate, month over month, quarter over quarter. And they'd have me come back in, and I would do a refresh. Okay. And which would just prove how far off managed spend is. And then I started looking, I was like, why is it that rogue spend has better performance than managed spend? Is anyone looking at this? It was just like, so what I saw is misalignment, and no one was willing to pick up the ball unless there was a really big chunk of change. So fast forward 10 years, a lot of those processes got absorbed into companies. That kind of spend analytics world went away. But then the same thing. So now the policies are just ignored internally. So what we started to do is we built, we moved from the SLA into the actual asset performance. Okay, in other words, what is value? What is quality? Okay. And I built some systems and we got pulled deep into like the telecommunications industry where there's all of these like set-top boxes. There's literally like CommScope or Comcast owns about 180 million set-top boxes. Just think about what that looks like. Just nightmare. And these things are bouncing around like rabbits. I built a system that could track every single one of them across every single data feed from the purchase to basically when it's finally being scrapped and capture every single movement every single day. So it basically I call it like where is your children? And there's actually a view. I mean, I could show this view and it would blow your mind. But I could show you where every single one of your 168 million assets are. And then I just started building pieces of enrichment. Okay, well let's do total cost of ownership. Let's do mean time between failure. And then
let's get to AI pretty quickly here.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially what's happened is as we moved, so again, as we go through the entire spectrum of supply chain, what we realized is that I could create algorithms that could predict when these bad things are starting to happen. Now, and this is going back to 2010 and 2017, we took those same algorithms and tested them with the first versions of machine learning, absolutely destroyed it. So where we had diminished return models, now suddenly wonderful consultants can turn around, we could put $4 or $5 million back on the bone. So long story short, where we are today is I can sit with Dorina and I can look at supply chain because I've literally handled probably about 3 billion reverse pathways to death. And I have full life cycle from some of my clients from 2010 to yesterday. So suddenly, and then reverse logistics started coming in, and Dorina was like, well, how are you destroying these assets? And we realized the key was to get deeper. And again, right now we're dealing with an excess obsolescence scenario that is just insane how this company got themselves in this situation. But we have to cure the excess and obsolescence and then find ourselves deeper into the supply chain. So for me, understanding that, listen, if we had a best buy scenario, because what I'm doing every single day of that life cycle is I'm going to tell you what is your asset's performance, how are you evaluating it versus the market. And then as we keep getting all the way to the point of that purchase, that's my sweet spot. I understand how to do the best buy. And I know that if we had a good blended buy strategy that then could be traced through the excess, so we never get obsolescence. And then what you do is, here's the key. So it's all about pure economics. You know what the asset is worth. You know what you owe for it. At the same time, you open up the other side and you build transparency. That's where AI comes in. Because AI can turn around, and now what you have is a harmonization marketplace. You have something that is on the books for 120 bucks. It's going to depreciate to 100, and you have buyers over here that will buy it at 100, and they've been waiting patiently. So
excellent, excellent. That summed up and clarified it for me. So, Dorina, you saw how this can be applied to federal agencies, and that's the network that you're establishing, is how to bring this commercial solution set into the federal agency. Will you explain about your vision on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, what everything that Michael was talking about in terms of being able to, find those efficiencies from the start and optimizing the value and recognizing when we call it a decision turn point, right? Like a decision point of that particular device. If we know what the devices are, and then we are monitoring it through its life cycle and recognizing what we know in the marketplace as well, we can trigger internally to let folks know these particular assets have great value now, and it might make sense for you to probably get rid of it sooner than later. And we can also help with kind of guiding where that should go as well, based on the market conditions and based on the buyers that we know that are willing to buy that particular asset. And I won't go into this, but I know Michael would geek out about this regarding not just about the asset, but we can even get down to the part level.
Yep.
Right. So even if there is a certain part within an asset that might have value, we can even get to that type of level. But what that means overall, right? What does this mean for the leaders that are on the call, for those that are managing assets that find themselves in this kind of continual spin of, I just have so much. And are we getting the best value for this? Our IT budget is very, very healthy. How do we know that we are getting the best value for the buck? That's where our governance system can come in and play. Not only are we going to take a look at what you have, how it's currently being used in your disposition process, but we want to help then course correct and determine what it is that we think we should be buying based on your buying power, based on your usage, and then based on your policies on how that should be end of life, right? What we should do for end of life. So that is what I saw in having these conversations, is to say, if we could bring in that type of intelligence and work with these federal government agencies that are having these problems, then maybe we can help them get more for what they have without disrupting their current process. We're not trying to sell in a software package. We're not trying to replace their asset management tool. We want to lay on over it, and we want to add intelligence to make them do their jobs smarter and stay compliant and get a better return on those assets.
Ralph, it seems like some of this is going to provide information to the owners about their IT assets that they might not have had before. And therefore, it might change their whole approach to how they are decommissioning their assets. Is that a correct assumption, Ralph?
I would say that's exactly where we are, right? That's the exact assumption. And that is, if you can track certain data, but you might not use that data, right? You might have a field for it, but you might not be using it. Good data in is good, good assumptions out. But yes, ultimately, that is going to open up doors, maybe even a Pandora's box, to what you might not even want to know, but you might be, you might really want to see. So yes, agreed. That is going to change probably how you're going to do business as well.
On a positive side, Michael had mentioned the $120 item that is going to go down to $100. And if there is a way of saying there are a large number of people who are willing to pay 105, you've got 10,000 of these.
That's right.
Maybe you want to get rid of them at 105, and now you can start playing in markets in ways that you haven't been able to before.
Right.
You're dead on. So that's the mature state. So the first thing we do, it's all about learning. Well, what are we learning from? Well, here's a whole bunch of obsolescence. Well, how did that happen? Well, this is how it happened. So, okay, well, what about the excess? If this isn't obsolete, it's just simply sitting on the shelf. Well, how did that happen? So when you finally keep chewing your way through, so we're solving problems and learning as we go. But then when we finally get to the mature state, we get to the new buy. At that point, we have a bunch of learning in the past. We know how assets are used. We know who's using it. We know quality and value. So when we walk in that room, we are that commodity manager. And when I say blended buy, I'm talking about, okay, we want to lease this. We want to own that. We want to buy back that. And by the way, if our excess drops below this, you need to buy this back from me. I'm the federal government. So, we walk in with clout. We walk in weaponized. That way, and we have all of our get out of jail free cards lined up with the manufacturer. See, that's how you win the war eventually. But we have to solve the problems and learn along the way. First, to learn the organization, get the patterns. That way, when we do sit down, we are weaponized. That's just the best word for it. And that way, we can make the best deal at the best moment and make sure that that they have our back. And there's so many things we can do when we finally get to that place of the known, right? I like to say, if our customers now, they come to me and just say, if you can prove this, and we can do that. That's really the relationship. So it's our job to
federal
get
government. I talked with one of our board members, an ALN senior fellow, Rich Culbertson, who is a walking encyclopedia of federal regulations, and he pointed me to GSA 41 CFR 102.392-0. And there are these policies of how the federal government has to work. So as we go forward, let's turn some AI on these policies
Love
and
it.
then be able to go to them and say, according to your policy, you can't do
Yep.
this, but you can do this. And
Yeah.
by the way, you might want to consider changing your policy. We're
Love
meeting
it.
with the senator next week, and it would be good to know if she
There you
is
go.
able to do anything to help you with your policy. So it's about, what Dorena was saying is bringing the network together to bear on a real important issue.
Huh.
And I want to take it one step higher because everything I see in the news is saying AI is going to destroy jobs. And I think that is such a small minded view.
Yeah, it's not
It's
true.
like the gas engine replace jobs of horses and things like that. And
Right.
what we've got to do is envision AI doing the work that we don't want to do so that the government can then establish policies that say, do the work that you want to do, and we will give you value as long as you're contributing to our list of things that need to be done.
I can give you a vernacular that will help you with that. So think of it in terms of tactical. So right now I'm actually writing a book. It's called Attainable AI. And what it really comes down to is we have tactical AI all around us. But guess what's actually coming? The real revolution is strategic AI. It's the harmonization. It's looking at all the micro AIs doing their thing and then turn around and harmonizing that with a strategic AI. Now, the strategic AI is actually at the level of the decision maker. It's not replacing decisions,
Yep.
but it does turn to that decision maker and says, hey, what's the vision? What's the target? Give me context, give me constraints, give me a target. Okay, now allow me then to tell you, and exactly the way you're thinking is, let me simulate if we do this and move this policy from here to here, this is the delta. Mm-hmm. That's strategic AI. Okay, and that's what we support, and that's what we champion. So we already have vernacular for that. I have a book coming out. So those are the kind of things that would help you really, really take and give them context to how they have to think differently and not be afraid of it.
Yeah. Ralph, it sounded like you wanted to say something.
No, I'm just humming. I'm just humming, saying, I agree.
Yeah.
It's just this is where we are. It's not all about replacing jobs. It's about, enhancing jobs. It is about, like you said as well, Mike, both Mikes, it is improving your ability to be more efficient, more effective, and do the things you like to do, and actually not work 15 hours a day, but hey, how about 8 hours? How about 7 hours?
But let's give you the value for what you're doing as opposed to hourly value. We need to get away from that. But anyway,
yeah.
So
like
this is really exciting and dynamic conversation. It's so good to welcome you to the network. So thank you, David Shelby at EPA, for introducing us all together. And I would like to bring you back when we've got a demonstration of sorts to kind of walk people through from the policy to the disbursement, or maybe reverse, and this is the way it's typically dispersed, and now this is the better process, but we can worry about that later. Dorena, let's go around and have some closing comments.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I forgot to say, and I use this term, kind of how we got here in terms of the asset disposition and what got me to Tallgrass is that what I've learned in my career in really working in reverse with electronics, right? At 12 years just doing mobility, and now another, almost 10 years here just working with IT assets. But one of the things that I have learned in working with organizations is that, and in any situation, you can learn a lot about an organization by looking at their trash, right? Looking at what they are no longer utilizing. And it was in that discovery that led me to I think we can do better. I think we can do better. And if we can find a solution to help govern it and right turn when we should be making a left, whatever that looks like, that's what we're here for. And that's what I have built the consultancy on with at Salus Technology Partners, is wanting to help organizations. Let's see if we can find better solutions for the assets you do have, but let's see what we can do in our partnership with Tallgrass to layer in that intelligence and see if we can't govern this and find ourselves. I think somebody put in the chat that circular economy that can help support your spend internally.
Dr. Marty Rowland, another ALN senior fellow. He wants to get in on this, but then it would have been an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. That's for another webinar for sure. But I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work with such the folks that have been doing it. This isn't just something that they've spun up, last month or a year ago, whatever that is, to keep up with the trend. I mean, Michael and Ralph have been working. Michael's been working in AI large language models for almost over 20 years now, right? Before it became sexy to be in AI. And, here we are trying to build a program that's going to help solve some real life problems.
So, Michael, you were bringing it from science fiction into reality. It's not just a movie for you.
No, it's very, very much real. And I think the fun part now, it's the culture is ready. This has been a cultural battle.
Yep.
It has not been technical.
And one of our other members says owners now know they need to get their information in order for AI to work for them. And so whatever got us here, we're here. And it's so good to be talking with the people who are making it happen. Ralph?
Yeah, absolutely. No, last comment. That's spot on. Making it happen, making it real, and that requires the right data, right? Whether it's siloed, now it needs to be harmonized, right? If it's siloed, large organization, siloed data needs to be harmonized. It's what we do best, and then start working with the models and get them going and get them learning. So yeah.
Well, not too many organizations larger than the U.S. federal government, so I think there's plenty of opportunity there. And we're looking to have a federal asset management success stories event in the Capitol Building Conference Center on April 29th. If the government does not shut down, we will be shooting for that. We have a state and local government day on April 28th, where we will be in person in the Washington, D.C. government chief financial officers building on the waterfront in Washington. We've got 100-person conference room for the day, and it's already overflowing with program opportunities. It's going to be like speed dating. Everyone's going to have 5 minutes and then move on or something. We'll figure that out. We don't have to do that today, but it's great to bring your energy to those types of activities. So thank you, Dorena, Michael, and Ralph, for joining us. And thank you to all of our attendees, especially Dr. Marty Rowland. Bye for now. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.